Second.
Susan seconds. Laura, can you call the roll?
Constanescu,
Here.
a yes or a no?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Lauritsen,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
and Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any questions or concerns on that? Not, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Susan
I
moves.
second it.
Julie seconds.
Yes.
Laura, can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Constanescu,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Lauritsen,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, public comment. Laura, did we get any public comments?
We did not.
Okay. Next, no special reports. So old business, senior wheels program. Scott, do you want to kind of give the council a rundown of what the finance committee's been working on?
Yeah. So we've obviously been meeting with the Senior Wheels program. I think it actually came to the council last summer about the upcoming need for a new van. So just a little background about this, just going through some notes that I had. Make sure everybody's up to speed on, the Douglas County Resource Center, and Laura did a great job of capturing the notes in your packet. So they are the current administrators of this program. They supply a van, insurance, maintenance, and some administrative support, like a cell phone bill for our dispatcher. They've also committed to a backup van and drivers, but I don't believe we've actually ever taken advantage of that or used that commitment. So the city, in the current van, which is a 2008 model, city contributed $15,000. County contributed about $20,000 to that. Just to give you some background on it, so the program leadership came to the council and budget and finance committee and regarding the upcoming need for a replacement vehicle in the next 6 months to 12 months, and they asked during that if the city would consider taking over control of the program. And so as a budget and finance committee looked into the what that would mean in the pros and cons, first of all, you're looking at the vehicle replacement cost, which could range anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000, depending on model and condition. I mean, a wide range based on the age and condition. So that's one expense that would be upcoming. Either the county or the city or both would have to figure out how to fund that. The other part of it is that the city currently already funds $3,000 a year out of the budget to this program, and the program generates about $8,000 in donations a year. So that $11,000 actually goes directly back to the county in support of this program. So if we looked at taking this on as the city, as a city entity, it'd be a 501(c) type of organization that the city would administer. We would have to look at what are the ongoing costs and how does that relate to what we're currently funding and or the donation amount. So I'm trying to think I left anything out. So there are grants, ADOT grants that could be pursued to fund up to 80% of the vehicle cost. So that's something either the county and or the city could pursue. So just to wrap up, some positives and negatives that the committee discussed around the city taking control would be that, first of all, we would have more control and the potential to make it a long-term viable program. There's no long-term funding commitment from the county. Obviously, you can't do that. They just don't have a crystal ball. So, that there's no indication that support would end, but then again, there's no indication that they can guarantee that it will continue. So we would have control over really the long-term viability of the program. think another thing that we learned was that the county prefers kind of a fixed rider charge model because they pay their drivers. But based on the city support and the effort of the volunteers that we have in that program, in the donations we get, that our riders ride for free. Well, that's a different model that we've been able to provide just under the current model. Another thing we have the ability to do if we took control is really more of a marketing effort for donations, making sure we had enough volunteers to run the program, drivers, etc. Negative, there's a potential that the annual cost could be larger than greater than what we're paying today. So that is a cost depending on the annual vehicle, ongoing maintenance, the outright cost of that, etc. So questions, comments, anybody else on the Budget and Finance Committee want to add color to that or correct me in anything I spoke incorrectly about?
No, you nailed it all, Scott. I think it's just weighing that decision of whether or not, we want to look at that potential risk, how much that potential risk is going to be once we break away from the county, if at all, depending on what their decision kind of is on that and how they react to us taking it over. And this might be something too that rolls into strategic planning, which we haven't done yet. So just kind of a lot to think about.
I'll add on a couple things, Scott, just from last year. I think Brian and Susan already know this because we briefly discussed this last year. But part of the reason why this came about was, our seniors were essentially kind of without transportation for 3 months because it was taking so long to get the van fixed. And Bill and Randy are here to speak tonight on this. So the council can hear from them, and then we can continue the discussion. But I want to let them have a chance to speak here. So, Randy, are you on?
We are on. Bill is with me as well.
All right.
So it worked. Thank you very much, Laura. So let me just give you a couple other tidbits of information. I think Scott mentioned it. The KDOT grant is probably our best opportunity fiscally to replace the current van. And it's an 80-20 coverage. The KDOT pays 80%, we pay 20%. And we actually have a Baldwin Senior Wheels checking account that has almost $9,000 in it that could go toward paying that 20%. So that's the one big thing. The other thing, it's a minor detail, Scott, but in that $8,000, that $8,000 we provide to the county includes the $3,000 from the city. So that'd be the total sum that we provide to the county every year. Not $11,000, it's $8,000.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
Great. No, thanks for correcting me.
Bill,
Everything you said is right.
Randy, can you tell the council what you guys would like to see, and so they can hear kind of from you on what ultimately.
Sure. I think our biggest issue is one of support, from the county, and I don't know what to say about that other than we don't get much attention from them and much support from them. But that's also because Bill Neuenswander and others have run this for 7 or 8 years, and they run the program by itself, and it runs great. Because we've never really needed anything other than repairs, and then we've gotten in trouble with the repairs, to your points, Casey. And so I think the whole idea of bringing it within the city to gain more control and make sure we're all on the same page and really get visibility for the community is our key thing.
I will add to that, if we would stay with Douglas County and do the KDOT program through them in the fall and
be successful.
They said it'd be delivered, might get it by February. They would own the van. So the city's really out of it because they control the van, so we have to pay in continue to pay as we have been. I think the city has to make a decision. Do we want to do this? You have to check with your legal people. And if you do, what kind of timing? If you make a decision to do it, the timing on the van, we have several options we can follow.
But I think the KDOT application is in October.
We could do the KDOT. They do have leases. I mean, yeah, you can do a lease. You can buy a used one like we did the first time through, and that would run us $45,000 for one that's probably 2 or 3 years old that had 30, 40,000 miles on it. Or we could look for buying a new one. Again, the city has been supporting the program by first giving us $15,000 to buy the present van, and finally after that, we supported $3,000 every year. Now this is in our 8th year.
Bill, I have a question. Do you guys believe what do you believe with the lease payments and the cost associated with this? Do you think that you guys could gain more donations if it was under the city umbrella? One is my first part of my question. And two, do you think that through donations, how much more support from the city do you anticipate it needing?
If we continue with Douglas County, we talked about having the city contribute $4,000 a year instead of $3,000. But if we go with the city, we also have a very nice donor in town and said he's already given us $5,000 this past year, and he said if the city's willing to contribute, I'll see that we get more money to you in the future. And you know who that person is.
Yeah.
He's on your finance committee.
Yeah, the one thing we don't know is if we lease a van, we don't know what lease payments would be.
Well, that's fairly easy. I mean, for a municipality, typically we send it out to bids to our local banks, and then essentially they call it a lease, but really it's a loan. Yeah.
Sure, but if we took the $3,000 city payment out of our $8,000 annual contribution, you could expect that our donations from people and our breakfast fundraiser are about $5,000 a year. And I would not expect donations to change higher, if you will. I wouldn't expect those to change whether it's city run or county run.
However,
Does that count?
Go ahead.
Does that count the $5,000 pledged?
No, that's all
Money?
off to, yeah, that money is off to the side in a checking account.
Yeah.
There's about 9,000.
Yeah, we have received about a little over $10,000 in donations in the last 15 months. We did pay a little over $1,000 for a repair out of that. So we're right at just close to $9,000 at this point. But that would put aside in case you want to go to KDOT, we're going to have to come up with that money. Dave Hill gave us a nice lucrative check, and you know about that. And he said, we need to do it in Baldwin City, and I will be willing to continue to contribute in the future. And he's just one of our donors.
Okay.
So Casey, if we do pursue the grant and are successful, I assume then that 20% would be an outright expense. We wouldn't lease the balance.
Correct. You're correct.
Okay.
And so 20%, back in January, we discussed. Well, back in January, we discussed a new van would be about 80,000. And I think Bill just said a used one would be about 45. So kind of put in perspective of what that bill might look at 20% if we were successful pursuing that grant.
Be about $16,000 to $17,000.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So with the donations, and everything, we'd have a little gap in there that we'd have to cover. But I mean, obviously, I think the sentiment's been that we want the city to have control over that program. So.
You know, I would agree with you, Corey. I would like to see the city bring it under our umbrella. I do think that we would get more community support if it was that way. You know, it would be more visible, as well as, I think it's important to look at the volunteers and say, hey, what if we ever had a problem with volunteers? What's the county really going to do? I know they say that they have backup drivers, but we also lost a van for 3 months. So we have to look at, I guess our history and then where it's going, and kind of have that crystal ball to make sure that our seniors are taken care of. So, and I think we can control that better locally, is my opinion. But does anybody else have questions for Bill and Randy, or any comments or anything? You guys all good?
Just one point of clarification. Douglas County Senior Resources owns the current van. It's titled through them. Even though the city and Douglas County primarily paid for it. But they did the paperwork to start with, and we raised the money to the county and to the city. But if they do the KDOT, they will own the next van. You understand? If they make the application. So if the city wants to say, let's do it, then you have to make a decision before a fall KDOT would be presented to Douglas County. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Bill, my kind of just thinking about it over the last, week after we had our discussion, my thought was, if the council's will is to bring this under the city, then we can approach Douglas County about seeing if they'll just sign over that van to the city. Then we move on with our grant process with KDOT was kind of my, how I anticipated this going to see. Obviously, I think we want to start with the grant, try to get that, and then if we can't, then figure out another way. But that's kind of what was just running through my mind.
Good. Okay.
Scott, what do you have?
No, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, really, it's the vehicle piece. Does the decision need to be made until we really understand whether the county is willing to sign over title? If they're not, we obviously need to stay with them until we figure out an alternative, whether we pursue the grant on our own. So, I mean, they don't have a timeline for us exiting. We can probably do that whenever is convenient for us.
Correct. I would just add that I think from an administrative side that we need direction from the council to understand where the majority is, so that way we can move forward with those discussions with the county and see. I mean, it's the right time to do it with everybody's budget cycle coming up if we're going to start having those discussions.
It is, and to build on what Bill was kind of alluding to, when we talked at one of our first meetings, our first budget meetings, we had talked about how that van may only have 2 or 3 years left in it. So if we wait around, a couple of years and the van breaks down and they're still with the county and the county, grants them another van, then they're kind of locked into the life of that new van. So I understand what Bill was saying too.
So I guess what's the kind of the consensus on the council? Do you want us to continue down this road and have conversations with the county to see what their will is on this, or do we want to leave it the way it is?
I
think it's
remember
good.
when I
Go
was
ahead. Sorry.
Ready.
Go ahead, Susan.
and I want to make sure that this continues to be a very viable program and gets the attention it deserves. And I think bringing it under the control of the city is going to be the best way to assure that. We just need to make sure that we can properly fund it. So I think, we just need to figure out how we do that. And maybe we figure that out and then we have our work session or
I agree.
Brian, Julie, what are your thoughts?
I'd like to have more information about how this all works. And the other thing, like Casey said, is that the volunteers, I know, you know, anytime you talk about volunteers, that can be, you know, a situation that could pose some problems down the line if you don't have the people to do it. And then would we have to pay people to, you know, do the driving and all of that? So I'd just like to have more information about how that would all work.
And I think, Julie, I guess to expand on that, we did have a small amount of discussion, Scott, I think,
Yeah.
regarding that. And, you know, obviously we'd want it to continue with the volunteers with, you know, they're so gracious with their time with this program and they've been doing a fantastic job. And during that time, create a contingency plan that, you know, if that were to ever go away or if we ever start losing volunteers, you know, again, this isn't discussions that we've had with anybody, but, you know, maybe talk to the rec and say, hey, would you guys be willing to, you know, step in and you know, drive every once in a while or something. Again, no conversations have happened on that, but just create that contingency plan to back up our volunteers so we know that this program can be viable and can continue for our seniors.
I think it's a great point, Julia, you bring up, you know, but if you think about it, the volunteer situation isn't any less if we're going through the county. In fact, you know, what's their ability to get Baldwin volunteers to run this program if we run out? You know, I see them moving to a pay per ride model to pay drivers. As a city, we'd have the same option. You know, we would treat it as a normal budget item and look at the cost every year. If we're not getting the donations, the city would have to potentially make a decision down the road that we do have to charge to make it viable. But so we talked about it in the committee. It doesn't really help us with a volunteer situation, which we all agree is a big issue. If the city owns it, we think we have more control than if the county owns it in that regard.
Well, and there's, you know, Julie, I guess to expand on that, and I think I've talked to Scott and Corey a little bit about it. Again, last year's finance committee had discussed essentially placing a mill of property taxes just for this service to fund it continually and setting up its own, you know, its own cash reserve, I guess you'd say, was discussed, and I think can be continued to be discussed. And again, I think by bringing this under the city, it actually gives us more liberty on that to make sure that it is a viable program. So we're not having to ask the county, hey, can you send down some people from Lawrence? Can you put more funding in here? Can you hire somebody to run the program down here? You know, it just gives more local control, you know, and how our community may change in the future. So especially, you know, right now we're adding more senior housing into town. So this is going to even be a greater need than before, I think. So, but you did very good points. And I think definitely things that need to be part of the discussion moving forward. So is everybody's consensus kind of move forward and talk to the county, see what the level is, and start having those discussions?
I think so.
Sounds good.
Okay. Glenn, we might set a meeting with Nancy Thelman and see if we can't get started with her, and she can help give us some guidance on all this. That way we can bring back a plan to the finance committee and ultimately to the council.
You want to set us up.
And also, would you like us to call our counterpart over at Senior Services to give her a heads up that this is the direction of the city? So she knows when Nancy comes to her?
Or do you want?
I think we need to have those discussions with Nancy first and kind of feel the temperature there and what she thinks, but I'm welcome to listen to all the council members, what they think on that. If you want them to reach out or if we want this to come from the city side. What are your thoughts, Scott?
Okay, Casey, I think it would also be helpful to Susan's point, you know, if we did have an understanding of costs around whether KDOT grant happens or it doesn't happen, we kind of know what the extremes are.
Correct.
It needs to be part of the budget discussion and you know, may impact the decision depending on the rest of the budget conversation.
Yep, I completely agree. And I think our work session scheduled for next Saturday. Is that right, Laura?
No, it's Tuesday, the 26th.
Tuesday. I'm
Tuesday.
sorry. Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the strategic plan.
Strategic planning, yes.
So yeah, I think this definitely needs to be a conversation, and hopefully over the next week we can get more information along that. Maybe some projections from our budget guys of what that cost may be in that van and what it looks like without a worst case scenario. I guess what I'd say. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just let us know how we can be of service to help you make a decision, or if you want to set up a joint meeting in the city and Douglas County, well, we can do that, or whatever your two wishes are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you can see, I think the council's will is to move down this path. So we're going to start working, and it's going to be probably a slow process, but I think we'll end up getting something and hopefully make it an even better program for our seniors. So, but Bill, we will definitely keep you and Randy in the loop as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work on this too. I appreciate it.
Keep it up, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. You all take care.
Thank you.
We can drop off, I assume?
You what?
We can drop off?
Yeah. Yep. We'll shut you off.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move down that path, and Glenn, I guess we can just start working that way. And then we'll bring it to the finance committee. Glenn, speaker on. You listening?
I'm listening. I'm here. I hear you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is under new business is the resolution 2020-12 CDBG funding. I'll give a quick overview and I'll kick it to Glenn because he was pretty instrumental in this. This is new funding from the state that they're allowing. Something getting thrown.
Zoom bomb.
What is that?
Oh, that's classic, Susan. Oh, I love it.
You're so lucky.
Leave it to my.
Yeah.
But this funding's come from the states, first come, first serve. As part of it, we have to make public notifications in the paper and everything, and then have a hearing, which we set for next Wednesday, I believe, at 4:00. Is that right, Laura?
27.
But it's new funding, so it's small business grants is what it is for our small business community. And Glenn, go ahead and go into more detail. You're on the webinars.
Oh, right. Okay. We'll give you the quick thing here. They've had the block grant program in Kansas since the 1980s. It's federal money, comes through the state, goes to the Department of Commerce. The round of funding you have now is $9 million that's allocated to Kansas. All of Kansas gets $9 million. We can get up to $300,000 in a block grant. It's not the usual competition that they have where you make an application and the application is scored against the other ones. This is strictly first come, first serve. So if you qualify under, you have to be under 100,000, which we certainly are in population. Then, you're likely to get the funding, which would give us $300,000, and then it has to be granted, not loaned, but granted to small businesses. And then we'll have to determine how we're going to do that. The mayor and I have had some discussions of how we would like maybe to disperse that funds, trying to get ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but there's got to be a way for us to have the greatest impact in our community. It's all about saving businesses, saving jobs, and saving our tax base at this point. So we've done our part as far as deferring utilities, and there's other programs out there through the SBA. But this is a direct grant. It won't be a loan. So if somebody qualifies and they have to be a qualifying business under the low to moderate income limitations, they would get direct assistance from us. I don't know how long it's all going to take, but we have set up a hearing. We have a resolution tonight that it's required under all block grants. So it seems really kind of complicated, But when you get down to it, there's $300,000 we can apply for, and that would directly go to our businesses here in Baldwin City. So that's what the application process is all about. So I could bore you with even more details if you wanted me to, but for some reason, I don't think you want me to do that. So anyway, any questions about that?
All right.
So it's 300,000 or nothing, right? Either you get the 300 or not. It's not like
You
you,
can
get,
get,
like 15.
no, you can get up to 300,000.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're applying for the max. We apply for
we
the
will
max.
apply for the, you might as well.
Sure.
You might as well apply up
Sure.
to 300,000. But that'll be up to Department of Commerce how much they give us, or they could not fund us all. What they told us was they're just going to fund until the money runs out. So whoever gets in line first is going to get funded. Very, very unusual for them to do this.
We got our application in early, so we're ahead of the curve.
Well, we haven't got the application in yet. We need to go through the hearing and all that. See, there have been cities who applied already without the hearing, and they've been kicked out. So you can't do that. The other thing I wanted to stress is a mistake, is that a lot of businesses heard about this grant program, and they started getting online and trying to fill out the application. They cannot do that. No business can apply directly for a block grant. So it always has to go through the county or the city. That's the only way it can ever be done. So we heard from a lot of small business here who were very frustrated. They got on the website and they started filling out the application, and they called and said, I can't move forward. And we said, no, you can't. We have to do that for you, and then we disperse the money. So we will be the middlemen on this whole thing, and we have to be. That's federal rules there. That's not even state rules. So just the way it works.
Any other questions on that? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve resolution 2020-12 CDBG-CV funding.
Second.
Ward made the motion, Susan seconded. Ward, can you call the roll? You're muted.
Unmute Julie too.
I bet she said Julie.
Yes. Yes.
Kramer, I can read her lips. but I-
Kramer? Yeah.
Yes.
Give the thumbs up.
Laurentson's a yes.
Pitts? Pitts is a yes, Laura. Venable?
Yes.
Oh,
Motion passes 5-0.
We'll just start doing thumbs up or thumbs down.
yeah. I agree.
All right, committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
Yes. So we obviously been through the senior wheels discussion. We also in our last meeting talked about the water rate budget impact analysis from Baker Tilly. They corrected kind of the spreadsheet we were using. So we'll have that for the budget 2021 budget process, be able to look at varying water rates and how they would impact the budget. We also reviewed the 5-year budget view that they've put together for each major fund in preparation for the council budget work session, which is Tuesday, May 26th at 7 p.m. at the American Legion. And we're certainly encouraging all the citizens to attend that. The other piece of information still on the Budget and Finance Committee's plate is the depot and park lease and trail easement agreement negotiations with Midland Railway, and they're still ongoing. Next Budget and Finance Committee meeting scheduled for this Friday, the 27th, 7:45 a.m., second floor, City Hall.
All right. Community development, Susan.
No new updates right now. Next meeting is scheduled for June 1st.
All right. Public health and safety, Corey.
Yeah, we met back on the 12th. Had two main topics we discussed. The first was the possible changing of the truck route, or at least modifying the truck route. Obviously, it's going to come time that the brick roads downtown are going to need improved upon. And when we do so, we were kind of wanting to see if we can alleviate some of the truck traffic that's causing a lot of the major damage to the bricks. we brought Steve Wilson in from Baldwin Feed, since he's the majority of the trucks coming through there, and he's definitely willing to work with us and do what he can on his part and tell his crew to kind of avoid the brick streets when they can. But we were just mainly talking about early discussions about how to get trucks off the brick streets. And the current truck for Steve, the biggest issue is having east access to the highway 2 ways. So he already has that with 1600 on Lawrence Street, and he has it with 11th Street down south, or I'm sorry, east. And he likes the status quo. He's wanted to keep that in place. Obviously, the issue there is trucks barreling down 11th Street. It's not very wide. It doesn't have sidewalks. And I think, where we kind of let things at, depending on whether or not we're able to get any KDOT funding for a potential stoplight at 1600 in Ames, which is actually 56 outside of town up by Hilltop. We kind of determine what direction we go. It's obviously very, very early discussions. We repeated that a lot. And then, maybe look to widening 11th Street and putting some sidewalks there to make it a little bit more of a pedestrian friendly as well as truck friendly, truck route, which it already is. So we're still having early discussions on that, trying to get creative, think of some ways to alleviate the damage to the bricks. And then the other thing is obviously early discussions as well about the RV park next to the tire shop there across from the police station. There's some safety concerns there too that we want to kind of maybe start correcting and kind of have early discussions about how we're going to approach that. Next meeting, June 9th, 4 o'clock.
All right, thanks, Corey. Julie, Legislative Committee.
Yes, I talked with Deborah Barnes at the League about changing the classification of the city, and she gave me some good information. And so we're going to have a meeting on the 21st at 8 o'clock in the morning at City Hall and talk about it.
Julie, could you also add on there peddler and solicitors licensing onto your agenda for legislative?
All right, say it again. I didn't quite catch it.
Peddlers and solicitors license?
Peddlers, yeah.
Peddlers.
Okay.
And take a look at that licensing. I know Glenn will be there, I would assume, and Blake.
Okay.
Look at the licensing for them. We've had quite a few calls lately, and so probably need to take a look at that.
Okay.
All right. City Administrator staff comments.
Did Brian already give a report? I missed it.
Oh,
Did not.
did I? Oh, crap. I'm sorry, Brian.
No new update. We are meeting on the 21st at 9 o'clock, City Hall, primarily talking about Rural Water District 1 out of Franklin County and their 2-mile extension into our territory, and then a few other project updates. That's it.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Skip right over yours. All right. City Administrator staff comments.
Hey, I'll go first. I don't know if Forrest got anything, but here we go. Strategic planning, we were talking about a little bit earlier. I was talking about that with our strategic planner there, and she's looking at the end of June 27th as being a date that we can do our strategic planning. That is a Saturday. So the plan would probably be to meet out at the golf course, out their clubhouse out there, if we can get it. And that will be an all-day event. So see if your schedules will work on that. We'll try to stay flexible with that. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to dominate our lives here at City Hall. We've had a little change with the 1.5, the phase 1.5, I guess, that the governor came up with. City Hall is now open. You can come in the door, but we're only allowing one person at a time. So we don't have a crowd of people because we can't do enough social distancing in there. But it has been open this week. The police station's been open, and so is Public Works. So all of our buildings are open to the public. We're just all allowing one person at a time right now. So that we figure that's the safest thing to do, and we're doing all the precautions as far as cleaning and everything, all the sanitation that we can possibly do at City Hall and at all the other buildings. So that's a little bit of change. So it's not completely back to normal, but we're starting to get there. The other thing we get tons of questions about recreation, and of course we have a recreation commission that handles that. But probably the number one question we get on every Zoom meeting and every email or whatever is about the pool. We cannot open the pool at Memorial Day. It's the earliest, I believe, to be June 8th. We probably not going to do that. The mayor and I are going to actually go talk with the rec commission tomorrow evening and see what we can do as far as opening the pool, if at all, this year. A lot of cities you may have noticed, I think Overland Park yesterday announced they're not going to open any of their pools. Eudora, I think, announced they're going to be open on June 15th. So everybody's all over the map on this. It's all coming down to a local decision of what your comfort level is. We can, at this point, open parks if we want to. That public restrooms, that is all local decisions at this point. So I think we need to have a conversation about all of those things going forward. The other thing you may have noticed, if you're going north in the city, you may have noticed we do have a new street. First Street is basically completed. So after 20 years of debate and construction, 2 years of construction, we finally have that extension up there we've been talking about forever, and it's finally done. So I think they did a great job on that. So with help from the township, the city working with the county, and everybody and all the homeowners up there, we finally got that done. So like I said, that only took about 20 years to do that. So hopefully the street will last at least 20 years. So anyway, that's all I can think of right now.
All right. Council
Yes,
comment, anything?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yep.
Sorry. Casey already touched on the solicitors, canvassers, and peddlers. And I brought that up because I've had 6 different people call me on it. And they're asking me if we're allowing that in our city. And so I just was asking for some direction on what to tell them about, whether they can or cannot.
On what again?
I've got 6 different people that are wanting to apply for a permit to solicit and peddle in our city.
Well, I think right now, I mean, Julie's meeting's only 2 days out. So
Okay.
I'd almost hold off until the legislative committee can meet.
Okay. All right.
We do have a provision in our code for it, but Laura, are you more wondering what an application looks like or what a license looks like? We have a provision in our code for peddling and soliciting.
Right. No, I have the application and all that. It's just whether or not the council wants to continue to allow this practice in our city. That's what they're asking me. So
Okay.
I would rather hold off on making any decision until the committee can take a better look at it and get the facts, and then we can make a decision after I talk to Julie and Scott after their meeting. Does that work, guys? All right. Any council comments? Well, let's just reiterate that we have a council work session on May 26th with our budget and finance committee, as well as I believe our representatives, our budget representatives, financial guys will be there to present to the council. But yeah, American Legion at 7 o'clock. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Brian. I move we adjourn.
That was a scrambled. Brian moved to adjourn.
Wow.
I second it.
Julie seconds. Laura, can you call the roll?
Konstanescu,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Lauritsen,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
Susan, Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in
Thanks.
person.
Yeah.
Next meeting.
Right.
All right.